1. The warning ignored. The stellar assembly convened once every solar cycle in the great crystalline dome of Nexus Prime, a space station so vast it could be seen from 3 star systems away. Representatives from 212 civilizations gathered there, their forms as diverse as the stars themselves. Some floated in environmental bubbles filled with methane, others crawled on hundreds of legs across the metallic floors, and a few existed as pure energy contained within specialized fields. At the center of the assembly hall stood Elder Kalith, the last of the primordial watchers. Her species had witnessed the birth of interstellar travel itself, and her knowledge spanned eons. Her form resembled a tree made of starlight, with branches that flickered between dimensions. When she spoke, her voice resonated through subspace itself, reaching every mind present regardless of their biology. The younger races barely paid attention as she took the speaking platform. They were too busy with their trade disputes, their minor territorial expansions, and their technological boasting. The Valdorian Empire, in particular, was preoccupied with displaying their newest planet-cracker weapons to potential buyers. Their representative, Supreme Commander Thex, stood proud in his crimson battle armor, his 4 eyes scanning the crowd for signs of fear or respect. Elder Kalith's branches began to glow brighter, demanding attention. The assembly gradually quieted, though many delegates continued their private conversations through various forms of silent communication. She had requested this emergency session, and protocol demanded they at least pretend to listen. "I bring a warning from the depths of time itself," she began, her voice carrying the weight of countless civilizations that had risen and fallen. "A new species has achieved the threshold. They call themselves humans, and they come from a small world on the edge of the Orion Arm. Do not underestimate them." Supreme Commander Thex laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Elder, we respect your age, but your fears are misplaced. We have been monitoring these humans for several rotations. They barely have fusion technology. Their ships are held together with primitive alloys. They still use chemical propulsion for most of their vehicles. What possible threat could they pose to civilizations that harness the power of stars?" The assembly murmured in agreement. The Valdorians were known for their military might, and if they dismissed the humans as insignificant, then surely there was nothing to fear. Other representatives began sharing intelligence about the human homeworld, each report more dismissive than the last. "They fight among themselves constantly," noted the ambassador from the Zephyrian Collective, a hive mind that had achieved perfect internal harmony millennia ago. "They have hundreds of separate nations on a single planet. They cannot even agree on basic resource distribution. How could such a fragmented species threaten the unity of the galaxy?" Elder Kalith's light dimmed, then blazed with sudden intensity. "You see their divisions as weakness. I see it as evolution under pressure. Every conflict they survive makes them stronger. Every disagreement teaches them new ways to think. They are not one species but millions of individuals, each capable of unexpected innovation." She projected ancient records into the center of the assembly, showing civilizations long forgotten. The architects thought themselves supreme until they met humans in another time. The Void Singers believed their technology was absolute until humans found ways around it. The Crystal Dynasty controlled half the galaxy until humans simply refused to be controlled. "These are myths," declared the Valdorian Supreme Commander. "Stories you tell to give importance to your warnings. There are no records of these civilizations in our databases." "Because they no longer exist," Elder Kalith replied simply. "Not in this timeline, not in this reality. But I have seen the patterns across dimensions. Humans are the universe's answer to stagnation. They are chaos given form, creativity without limits, determination without surrender." The assembly erupted in laughter and dismissive gestures. The very idea that a primitive species could threaten the established order was absurd. The Valdorians had weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. The Zephyr Collective had achieved technological singularity. The quantum merchants could manipulate probability itself. What could humans possibly do against such power? 3 months later, the first human exploration vessel entered Valdorian space. It was a small ship, no larger than a cargo hauler, with hull plating that looked like it had been welded together by apprentices. The ship broadcast a simple message on all frequencies. "Greetings from Earth. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship." Supreme Commander Thex personally led the interception fleet. 12 war vessels, each one capable of destroying a moon, surrounded the tiny human ship. The contrast was almost comical. The human vessel looked like a toy next to the sleek, powerful Valdorian dreadnoughts. The human captain appeared on the communication screen. She was young by galactic standards, with skin the color of Earth and eyes that held a curious intensity. Captain Sarah Chen spoke with calm confidence, despite facing enough firepower to eradicate her entire species. "We are honored to make first contact with the Valdorian Empire," she said. "We have much to learn from advanced civilizations like yours." Thex felt a surge of superiority. These humans knew their place, at least. "You have entered Valdorian space without authorization. Your vessel will be impounded, your crew detained for processing. You will provide all information about your species, your technology, and your resources. Compliance is not optional." Captain Chen nodded slowly. "I understand your position, Supreme Commander. However, we must respectfully decline. Our mission is one of peaceful exploration, and we cannot allow our ship to be seized. We are happy to share information through diplomatic channels." The absurdity of the situation struck Thex like a physical blow. This primitive captain in her ramshackle ship was refusing a direct order from the Valdorian Empire. He could destroy her vessel with a thought, and yet she spoke as if she had choices. "You seem to misunderstand your situation," Thex said, his voice dropping to a menacing rumble. "You are surrounded by superior firepower. Your technology is centuries behind ours. You will comply or you will be destroyed." Captain Chen's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "Supreme Commander, I need you to understand something about humans. We have a saying on Earth, 'Give me liberty or give me death.' It's not a negotiating position. It's a statement of fact." Before Thex could respond, the human ship did something impossible. It didn't run, didn't fight, didn't surrender. Instead, it broadcast something on all frequencies, an enormous data package that flooded every receiver in range. It was everything: their history, their art, their science, their dreams, their failures, their hopes. All of it transmitted in a massive pulse that reached not just the Valdorian fleet, but every ship, station, and planet within a light year. The message was clear: if you destroy us, you cannot hide it. The galaxy will know what you did. The galaxy will know who we were. And the galaxy will know that we chose death over submission. Thex hesitated. In all his years of military command, no species had ever responded like this. They fought or they surrendered, but they didn't turn their destruction into a moral weapon. He could destroy the human ship, but now the entire sector would know that the Valdorians had killed peaceful explorers who offered friendship. That moment of hesitation would later be remembered as the beginning of the end for Valdorian supremacy. Because while Thex debated, the humans were learning. The data burst hadn't just been a message, it had been a scan. The human ship's primitive sensors had mapped every Valdorian vessel, recorded every energy signature, analyzed every possible weakness. Captain Chen spoke again, her voice gentle but firm. "Supreme Commander, we don't want conflict. But if you force it upon us, I want you to remember this moment. You have superior technology, superior numbers, superior firepower. But we have something you don't understand yet. We have the ability to lose everything and keep fighting anyway." The standoff lasted 17 hours. Neither side fired a shot, but the entire galaxy watched through intercepted transmissions. The mighty Valdorian Empire, faced with a single primitive ship, blinked first. Thex ordered his fleet to escort the human vessel to a neutral station for formal diplomatic proceedings. As the human ship departed under escort, Elder Kalith watched from her meditation chamber in Nexus Prime. The first move had been made, and it had gone exactly as she had foreseen. The humans hadn't won through strength or technology. They had won by being unpredictable, by refusing to follow the established rules of power and submission. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but everything had just changed. The Reckoning. 6 months after the incident in Valdorian space, the galaxy was struggling to understand what they had witnessed. The human vessel had been escorted to Neural Station 7, where formal diplomatic contact was established. The humans sent a delegation of 12 individuals, each from a different nation on their homeworld. They came with gifts of art and music, mathematical proofs and philosophical texts, samples of their food and recordings of their children laughing. The Valdorians, still stinging from their public embarrassment, decided to make an example of another human ship that had entered their territory. This one was a colony vessel, carrying 3,000 humans seeking to establish a settlement on an uninhabited world at the edge of Valdorian space. Supreme Commander Thex gave them the same ultimatum: submit or be destroyed. The colony ship's response was different from Captain Chen's. They didn't broadcast their data to the galaxy. Instead, they sent a single message back to Earth, then turned their ship directly toward the Valdorian command vessel and accelerated to maximum speed. Thex barely had time to process what was happening before his tactical officer screamed a warning. The human colony ship was overloading their fusion reactor, turning their entire vessel into a multi-megaton bomb. It wasn't an attack that could seriously damage a Valdorian dreadnought, but the message was clear. The humans would rather die as weapons than live as slaves. The Valdorian fleet opened fire, vaporizing the colony ship in seconds. 3,000 humans died in an instant, their atoms scattered across the void. Thex expected this would end the human expansion, that fear would keep them in their own system. He was wrong. Within days, Earth's response arrived. Not warships, not threats, but something far more unsettling. They sent thank you notes, thousands of them, each one personally written by a human who volunteered to take the place of those who had died. The messages all said variations of the same thing. Thank you for showing us who you really are. We are coming anyway. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity did something unprecedented. They didn't declare war on the Valdorian Empire. They declared a migration. Millions of humans began building ships, not warships but colony vessels, cargo haulers, exploration craft, anything that could carry them to the stars. They published their destinations openly, claiming every uninhabited world within 1,000 light-years of Earth. The Valdorians threatened to destroy every human ship that left their system. The humans responded by launching 10,000 ships simultaneously in every direction. It was technological suicide. Most of those ships were barely spaceworthy, held together by hope and determination more than engineering. The Valdorians could destroy them all, but it would require mobilizing their entire fleet, abandoning their territories, and becoming nothing more than human hunters. Elder Kalith watched from Nexus Prime as the galaxy's reaction shifted from amusement to concern. The humans weren't playing by the rules. They weren't trying to match Valdorian technology or military might. They were simply refusing to be stopped, accepting casualties that would break any other species. The Zephyrian Collective attempted a different approach. They offered humanity a place as a client species, protected and guided by their superior hive mind. The human response was delivered by a poet, a soldier, a scientist, and a child speaking in unison but not in harmony. We thank you for your offer, but we must decline. We are not one voice but billions. We are not one path but infinite possibilities. To join your collective would be to cease being human. The quantum merchants tried to buy humanity's compliance, offering technology centuries ahead of human development in exchange for accepting limits on their expansion. The humans took the technology, studied it, improved it in ways the merchants hadn't imagined possible, and then continued expanding anyway. When accused of betrayal, the human negotiator simply said, "You tried to buy our freedom. We sold you the illusion of control." As human ships spread across the galaxy like seeds on the wind, something unexpected began happening. Other species, the ones who had been client states or conquered territories for millennia, began to take notice. The humans were doing something that had been declared impossible. They were defying the established order not through strength, but through sheer unwillingness to accept defeat. The Valdorian Empire, frustrated beyond measure, finally declared total war on humanity. They sent a fleet of 100 dreadnoughts to Earth, enough firepower to crack the planet in half. The journey would take 6 months at maximum speed, and they broadcast their intentions to the entire galaxy. Humanity would be made an example of. Earth's response was to throw a party. They called it the last dance of Earth and invited every species in the galaxy to attend. Millions came, drawn by curiosity or sympathy or simple morbid fascination. They found a world that knew it might die but refused to despair. Humans shared their food, their music, their stories. They taught alien children to play their games and showed alien artists how to paint with primitive brushes. But while Earth partied, human colonies across the galaxy were working. They had learned from every encounter, studied every technology they had seen, absorbed every piece of knowledge they could gather. Human creativity, unleashed and desperate, achieved breakthrough after breakthrough. They couldn't match Valdorian weapons, so they didn't try. Instead, they developed something else entirely. When the Valdorian fleet arrived at Earth, they found the planet surrounded by 10 million small satellites, each no bigger than a human child. Supreme Commander Thex laughed at the pathetic defense. He ordered his fleet to open fire. The satellites didn't fight back. Instead, they sang. Every satellite broadcast a different frequency, a different note, creating a harmony that resonated through subspace itself. It wasn't a weapon, it wasn't a shield. It was something far more fundamental. The humans had discovered the resonance frequency of consciousness itself, the underlying vibration that allowed self-aware beings to exist. The Valdorian fleet stopped firing, not because they chose to, but because they couldn't remember why they were attacking. The song didn't destroy or control, it simply reminded. It reminded every conscious being of their first moment of awareness, their first question, their first wonder at existence itself. As the Valdorian fleet floated in confused silence, Earth broadcast a message to the galaxy. We could have turned this into a weapon. We could have used it to control or destroy, but that's not who we choose to be. We choose to remind you that before we were enemies, before we were different species, before we were anything else, we were all consciousness experiencing itself. We are all equally impossible, equally miraculous. The war ended not with surrender or victory, but with understanding. The Valdorian Empire, shaken to its core by the experience, withdrew its declaration of war. The galaxy watched as humanity continued to spread, not as conquerors, but as reminders that the impossible was always possible if you simply refused to accept otherwise. Elder Calith addressed the Stellar Assembly one final time. You asked what humans could do against our superior technology. They did what they always do. They found a way to make our superiority irrelevant. They didn't defeat us. They changed the game entirely. In the years that followed, humanity became known not as warriors or conquerors, but as the species that couldn't be stopped. Not because they were strong, but because they simply didn't understand the concept of giving up. They colonized worlds others said were impossible to inhabit. They solved problems others said had no solutions. They made friends with species that had been enemies for millennia, not through diplomacy, but through sheer stubborn refusal to accept that friendship was impossible. The galaxy had been warned that humans were unstoppable. They hadn't listened. Now, as human children played with Valdorian younglings in the parks of Nexus Prime, as human artists collaborated with Zephyrian collective minds, as human philosophers debated quantum merchants about the nature of probability itself, the galaxy understood. Humans weren't unstoppable because they couldn't be killed. They were unstoppable because they turned every ending into a beginning, every defeat into a lesson, every impossibility into a challenge. They were the universe's way of proving that sometimes the most powerful force in existence isn't strength or technology or intelligence. Sometimes it's just the simple refusal to give up. Elder Calith, in her final recorded message before transcending to a higher dimension, left these words. The humans taught us the most important lesson any civilization can learn. We are only limited by what we accept as limits. They came to us as primitives and left as teachers, not because they evolved, but because they showed us we had forgotten how to grow. The stars didn't burn with regret, as some had predicted. Instead, they burned brighter, illuminated by the endless possibility that humanity had brought to a galaxy that had forgotten how to dream impossible dreams.